So last week on the podcast, I talked about some of the reasons why you would want to update your website. Going through the things you can look at and say, this needs to be updated, or maybe like the whole website needs to get updated. And this week, I'm going to be talking about the second step, which is, okay, now I have a problem. What's the solution? How do I even get started? This is an important thing. This is something that some people struggle with, and like that's okay. But that's what I'm going to be addressing on today's episode of the BB&J podcast. I'm your host, John Lint. Great to have you. Let's get started. So, the simplest, not necessarily simplest, but the first thing you really need to be doing is an audit. This is kind of a twofold part. If you're like, okay, I need to update some stuff. Oh, my website feels a little old. Maybe you haven't updated your website in 10 years. It happens. So, you get in the rhythm of things and it just gets behind you. And you're like, oh gosh, I have so much. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and just look through your website. Note the things that bother you, that aren't working, that you want to change. Doesn't have to be some crazy back-end stuff. Don't have to use some crazy programs. This is very surface level. You are just going through, you're saying, okay, I want to change these things. And then you're going and move, and then you'll have that moving forward. So you have a better idea of not just like, okay, I need to update my website, but I need to change X, Y, and Z on my website. Because if you want to work with somebody, if you want to do it yourself, if you want to, if you have a staff or team member who handles that, it's a lot easier to present them with something more concrete. But the second part is the things that you wouldn't necessarily know, that you wouldn't necessarily see, but that are very important for your website. What are we talking about? We're talking about the back end, the SEO, those little back optimization things. We're talking little consistency, little formatting things that you might not have necessarily seen. Maybe the site looks fine when you looked at it on desktop, but on mobile or at a very specific, window size, it looks weird in this one page. That's something that a web designer, that's something that someone who like does this for a living, basically, is going to be able to help you with. So if you're in this process where you're trying to figure that out, you can learn, you can see so much, but just someone having a second look, ideally a professional, there's a million and one people who can look at your site and do a wonderful job, developing this audit, that whether that be through Fiverr, through Indeed, through someone you personally know, through some member of your staff or a team member, whatever it is, you can definitely find someone. And I promise you, they're going to pick up on some stuff that you might not even notice. I mean, it's like, I could look at all the guys in the world. I can go to my car and I can see like, okay, so looks like the tires are a little low. Very, I can see that. Looks like, the coolant maybe needs to be replaced. Maybe I pull out some filter. I wouldn't recommend it. Little disclaimer: don't go pulling out random stuff all willy-nilly with your car. You can damage it. That's one of those things where you need to really know what you're doing or leave it to professionals. Kind of like a website. but you're like, oh, this filter looks kind of crummy, or maybe like the error just isn't good. Like you can see that stuff, but when you take it into a shop, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll do their own look through and tell you if there's any problems with the car, because there's a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't even think to look up, that you wouldn't even think might be a problem. But these professionals have been doing this for a while. They've worked with a lot of cars, and they know what to look for. They can see things that the untrained eye can't. Same is true with websites. So someone with experience in web design, a web designer, wherever you get them, have them take a look. Have them do some degree of auditing before you're making this update. If you're just doing a landing page, or if you're just adding something, it's kind of a different matter. You need to know what you want as a landing page so that you can get that built out. General site update is a little different matter. Still, I'd say every once in a while you should take a look at your website, make sure there isn't see if there's anything that needs to be updated, that needs to get fixed. I promise you, though, just looking at it here and there will allow you to deal with things in a lot less stressful way, a lot less headache for you. So if you have the audit, you went through, you got someone to look through it, you got your list of stuff you want to make, change, what have you. Where do you actually get started with these changes? If you want to update your own website, whether it be because you are a web designer yourself, or you have experience with web design, whether it be you have more time on your hands than you do money, and that's a resource that you want to be leveraging, by all means. If you really feel like you want to understand that process, okay, by all means, update your website yourself. How do you figure this out? I promise you, Google is your best friend. Because even though you won't get your answer directly from Google or your search engine of choice, could be Bing is your best friend, could be DuckDuckGo is your best friend, but Google is a verb at this point. But you search it, you look for forums. Forums are really your best friend. You Google to get to the forum, you get to the feed, and you have people who are in a similar boat as you. They are going to provide you invaluable insight. If you're trying to work with a certain plugin, if you're trying to make a certain script, a JavaScript function work, if you're trying to change the formatting in a specific way, if you're trying to deal with the specific site builder, I promise you 9.8 times out of 10, someone else has been trying to do that. Someone else has tried to deal with that headache. Someone else has figured it out. And that answer is on a forum somewhere. Can I tell you what forum it is? No, because there's a bunch of different programming and techie forums. Can I tell you can find it through Google? Yeah. Is there going to be that 2% where it doesn't? Yeah. And that's going to suck. It's going to take some advanced searching around or talking to a professional. But most of the time, there's a simple answer that is a search away. So that's the biggest thing if you want to do it yourself. If you don't have time to update your website, if you have tried to update your website and now you're pulling your hair out in frustration, like, oh my God, why is this so hard? Why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? Am I just going to give up? Like, no, you don't have to, because that's when you pass it off to someone else. That's when you're like, okay, I need to stop wasting my time with something that I don't have the time for. I don't have the experience for. I don't enjoy this at all. I hate this so much. Whatever it is, bring someone else on. Now, if you have someone who already updates the website, boom. Why did you even try to do it yourself? You have the person, have them do it. That's like the whole thing, right? That's why they're there. And, if you can, yeah, delegate. If you don't have your own person, I'd recommend go through, any of the countless little hiring mini contracting platforms out there. I mean, you have Indeed, you have the micro internship programs. You have plenty of options. Fiverr. I mean, there's a million others. Those are just the ones that come to mind for me. Find someone who will do it, because I promise you, there's probably someone who has done something very similar to what you're trying to do, and they can do it in a way that isn't gonna drive them crazy, because they have experience with it, because they already went through all that stuff, all that frustration, all that pulling your hair out, trying to search for that one forum, one blog article that answers their question. And I know that because I'm that guy. I'm the one who's, oh my gosh, you're searching, you're looking around, finally you find it after a bunch of work. But guess what? Like, I'm a web designer. That's kind of my job. That's what I have to do. If you're not, you don't have to. And if that's an option available to you, by all means, take it. Get someone to deal with that headache for you. Hire someone, pay an existing person, take on a contract or whatever you have to do. Get someone else who knows what they're doing to make those changes that you want to actually make after that audit, right? To implement the things you wanted to accomplish through the audit. Now, before you actually finalize these changes and go live with this website, some very important things to consider. There's very important things that you need to make sure that you do before these new updates go live. What are we talking about? Safety, right? Accuracy. Does it look right? These are questions you need to be answering. So hopefully if it's in a draft form, or maybe like, if you're going to play catch up like this, then right after it goes live, but make sure you check out the pages that the update's on. Just go through your website, take a look, click on stuff, make sure everything's working as it should. Though that final check is going to make a world difference. And it's not because of incompetence or anything. You're working with a human being. Human beings make mistakes, and that's fine. But there needs to be a safety net to prevent those mistakes from damaging your site, your reputation, whatever it is. So make sure that you're taking a look at what you wanted to change, review that audit, review the total, the checklist, the laundry list, whatever it is. Make sure that the stuff that you wanted to get done got done in the way you wanted, and that there wasn't some unintentional consequences. There wasn't an extra thing that was added that goes against what you're trying to accomplish, whatever it is, make sure you make those final checks, because that is a check and balance to this process. If you do that, you significantly reduce the risk of something going wrong. Like I said, people are human. People make mistakes. That's okay. It happens. But you need to make sure that the system isn't set up for failure with a check and review. Always check your work. Isn't that what they tell you in math? Make sure you check your work. I mean, I always heard that. You know, the thing you always need to do is check your work. Well, did you check your work? If your website went horribly wrong, did you check your work? Did you check the work? Did you check the website? Make sure you can confidently say, this is what I wanted. This was accomplished in a way that is sustainable, that's safe, secure, that looks good, you know, all that goodness. And I guarantee, if you do these things, if you do that audit, if you do what you need to actually like get started with the changes, and then you do that final review, you're going to have a great result. If you have any questions about this, if you're still unsure, you can always reach out to us or to someone like us. You know, your prerogative, but the bbdigitallab.com/podcast is always open. You know, you can leave a message, and we can do what we can to help you. If not, or if so, I'd like to thank you for listening and watching. Hope to see you next week. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'm John, your host, and thanks for watching.